Meteorologist Casey Cloud coming on the air live. There's a lot going on across the country, and I know locally we have a severe thunderstorm warning in play now for portions of Marion County, talking about portions of Eastern Marion County here until about 6:30. We had some stuff really pop up in those southern areas of the viewing circle. I know we were talking about this threat last night, and you see as I back it up and go forward, you see that box pop up, just barely clipping the area for now. Some pretty rural areas overall, but people might be out there on the weekend here, as we're looking toward Juniper Spring. Some folks are spring break into the upcoming week here. So watching this carefully, some small hail, maybe, to about an inch in diameter possible in Eastern Marion there, as well as some damaging wind gusts. As we get just outside of the viewing area, there's a severe thunderstorm warning here for Lake and Volusia counties. And then ultimately this stuff is moving off toward the north and east, so this could end up getting back in toward Flagler County here a little bit later on. I know this area is not our viewing area. This is, and this is. It's a little bit, unusual in that little section there, but I'm just letting you guys know what we're talking about, what we're dealing with here, and, just the overall setup is there's going to be a lot going on here in the hours to come as we monitor the situation very carefully. We're just trying to give you guys the very latest. May not have to stay on too long with this update, but later on it'll be a different story here as we give you guys the very latest information. I know you see some lightning there in toward Marion County, closer in toward the Ocala area between Ocala and Eureka there. You have some lightning there around Palatka. And, you can probably hear some of those rumbles of thunder, at least in Palatka. That's closer toward Yelvington as I zoom down a little bit closer there. I know getting back in toward here, though, we have East Central Marion until 6:30 under the severe thunderstorm warning at 6:12. A severe thunderstorm was located near Lake George, or 7 miles southeast of Salt Springs, moving northeast at 25 miles an hour. So just some hail damage to vehicles could occur, wind damage to roof siding and trees here a possibility. We're watching this all very carefully here. I know they had a tornado warning situation in Central Florida a little while ago around Lake Mary and Sanford. There were a couple different polygons popping up. We'll just have to hope that doesn't happen up in our neck of the woods here, but it's not impossible. I know, speaking of tornado warnings, and on a national level, we don't want to spend too much time on national, though. I do have some family and friends in this area, so I need to look at it myself, to be quite honest, as I'm keeping some of them updated. But you see some rotations along this line here in Missouri. It is about 524 over there. And you see there's a tornado warning right now toward St. Genevieve and St. Francis counties there. Got multiple little circulations popping up here. So those definitely could be capable in a small section here and there, producing tornadoes, which could have winds upward of 100 miles an hour, which technically is lower down the EF scale. But if that hits your home, that still can cause a lot of issues. Tornado warnings just east of St. Louis as well. We have a tornado warning down there, Carter and Ripley. I know in the heartland. We have snow squall warnings further back, if you can believe that. That's what these blue boxes are. These are snow squall warnings. That's an unusual map, to be quite honest, to have snow squall warnings and tornado warnings here not that far apart. But that's what, we're dealing with in terms of how dynamic a system this is. A sign of things to come in terms of the dynamic aspects for our area, not the snow. Granted, they could have snow in North Georgia, maybe even flurries in Central Georgia. We shall see, but that's, crazy to talk about. It's 84 degrees here east of Stark right now where we're at. But yeah, this is such an impactful system. Our pressure already down to 1,011 millibars and still falling here as we track. They were able to get the Player to Golf tournament in, so that's really good news. I know a lot of folks aren't able to watch their college basketball selections, though, in different parts of the country because of the severe weather, as the meteorologists are required, to be on in these situations as they should be in these life-threatening weather scenarios. But, as a situation here, at least the golf tournament locally got in. That's always good to hear, obviously. Folks can get home now before the conditions deteriorate here in toward that area. As you can see some of this stuff on the Doppler around here. You see lighter convection. I don't know if I want to really call it convection, but you can see here some light to moderate shower accent out toward the west. See all these tornado watches out here as we look toward areas from Texas up into Illinois. We're continuing to watch all of this here. We're continuing to track. We're continuing to give you the very latest I know, looking at all that out there, this is going to be a major risk, maybe, a historic type of severe weather risk in toward the Carolinas, Virginia tomorrow, a 4 out of 5 risk for tornadoes and that wind damage. It could be very prevalent here tomorrow, but we have a local risk as well. I'm hoping we'll get to catch our breath for a few minutes, and then we may have to pop back in for Flagler a little later on, but let's just go ahead and show you real quick here what we're doing with some of the modeling. This is what I was, looking at last night, seeing some of that, convection here later on. And then let me just get, to the current model runs. Let me go ahead and progress this in our system so we can give you the very latest information. So let me go ahead and get that loaded on in as we track, because this warning of Marion is just the very beginning. So this is supposed to be, by the way, Marion warning going away now. That's good. But, this is, as we look here, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I know you see the current lightning, but you got to watch out with, if you don't get that rain, you could have some fire danger with that. But you see 7 o'clock on the simulated radar here. As we track, by the way, a marine warning in the Gulf. That's a sign of things to come too. But you see some stuff here around the first coast in north central Florida at 8 p.m. popping up. Mainly talking about strong to severe storms. Can't completely ride a quick spin up tornado like what they had that threat, come into play for in central Florida a little while ago. But as you look here, as we progress things, you see stuff around Duval County. That's 10 o'clock, 11. Could have some stuff out west here that rotates. We'll see. As we look into toward tonight, which is, a cause for concern. This is like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. It doesn't look really, intense, but the parameters could be so, significant. Yeah, those parameters could be so significant. We could still have tornado warnings there around like Tallahassee, at 8 a.m. right around sunrise or so. I know sunrise, sunset, 7:37 for each today here, east of Stark. But as we look here, you see this is around, 10 a.m. That's as far as that shorter range model goes out. Let me go back a little so I can go further out here with this and go to the longer range. You can see this stuff kind of hangs around. Eventually, it said weaken some, but there is an enhanced risk of severe weather in South Georgia, a little bit more prevalent now. So we'll have to make sure, even if the stuff starts weakening further down here, some of that stuff, we'll have to just make sure, because there's going to be a lot of dynamics in play as we get further up toward the north. This could be a historic severe weather situation for your family and friends in the Carolinas tomorrow and in Virginia. We're talking about, parameters like which we haven't seen maybe since a terrible tornado event there. It was a couple weeks before the April 27th event. I remember watching it when I was in high school, the coverage out there. It was a terrible Saturday tornado event. I want to say it was let me get the date right. I don't want to get the date wrong there. Maybe the 16th? Let me look and back in, ironic, tomorrow's the 16th, but Carolina's 2011 tornadoes. I'm just going to look that up here real quick. Let's see. Yeah, that was April 16, 2011. This could be the biggest threat since then for them tomorrow, and that's a historic day. I don't throw around that lightly. I know, of course, April 27th was much worse in terms of the overall, human toll as we were looking toward Alabama, and, that didn't mean anything about, what could happen further down in the southeast in the weeks to come or anything. My point is, that, April 27th event overshadowed everything else, but there were a lot of bad events that April in 2011. This, looks like it could be rivaling that event where there was tornado emergencies in play, I remember, and a high risk day, but it had some bad events in the 80s that, this rivaled. So we'll have to just, really keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers up that way tomorrow as we look and as we travel. We got to watch too. This, that event back then didn't have that much for us on that Saturday in 2011. This one might have a good bit for us here tomorrow. So there are definitely some differences here as we look. This is 4 o'clock. You start seeing stuff break up finally in our area, and we'll have cooler air moving after that. So, you see here the cool air. This is as we get into toward Tuesday morning here. As I progress it, I guess it's not going to load the colors. Let me go back here. Okay, so you see mid-30s, though, by 1, 2 in the morning on that Tuesday. So that's really cool air, cold air coming on in to the picture. Let me see what I can do here in terms of, I know I was on with an update early this morning. Let me see that 70 I created this morning. Of course, it has today on it, but I'll go ahead and just show you this because this gives you an idea of what's to come. I'm going to take graphics full here. So you can see our severe weather potential now. Tomorrow's rain chance higher. Cool air Tuesday, Wednesday before we have a situation where temperatures are warming back up here later on in the week. You see low mid 70s, upper 70s, and you can kind of see in toward Saturday there and toward the 80s. So it's definitely going to be getting warmer here as we look and as we track things here. Just so chilly Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe some areas getting a freeze and towards South Florida. Got to protect those plants in some areas, but believe it or not, if we just had 90-degree heat not that long ago, just crazy, to talk about. I mean, today we had 87, so, when I say not long ago, I mean, Saturday was a little cooler. I mean, we were in the 90s on Wednesday, so crazy to be thinking about. But our local warning's gone now. It's past 6:30, but, around Pearson there and around areas there in toward Volusia County and Lake County, we have a warning, and that could be a sign of things to come as we get toward Flagler. It probably will be, to be quite honest. Not a guarantee, though. It's not a tornado situation. But let me see the wind mode here real quick just to give you a heads up. Just to give you a heads up here. You can see around some of these different communities there near US 17. You can see some of that wind enhancement. That's coming into rural Flagler. As we kind of look as we track, I may just need to stick with this, to be quite honest, because that's moving in kind of quick. Let's see here. The angle's a little more northerly than I thought. Watching in the loop here. That's really coming together. It's further away on the radar, but kind of going up more like this. So that's going to make it stick around longer for an area, unfortunately, as we look and as we track things here. Just got to be very vigilant here. There's an advisory for 50-mile-an-hour winds till 7:15 now for Flagler up to St. Augustine to Palatka as well. So I know there's a lot going on here in the Weather Center. Just an absolute, I got a lot open here right now on my system. Looking at stuff here, tracking things locally and for some relatives up north. Let me just see what else we might have here. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for trusting me. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Let's see if I have any questions or comments. I don't see anything. So what I think we're going to do right now is monitor this very carefully. I feel like we'll probably get a warning on this, again, but it's not a tornado situation right now for our area. Ugh, I move quick. I hate to just wrap it up and then we get a warning in 1 minute and have to jump right back in. It's kind of a tricky situation here. So let me just stay with this a little bit longer because you see that wind enhancement. I mean, that's literally one more radar scan from being into toward Putnam and Flagler. So, and that's when winds to 55 miles an hour. So Crescent City, a heads up, this could be pretty nasty for you guys over the next few minutes there as we track things. I know. Just trying to give you guys the very latest here. Trying to give you guys the very latest on the weather situation, obviously. You can see some of these different areas here. As we look, you see Putnam County and Flagler County. Again, we have this wind of 55 miles an hour showing up on the radar. Now, I need to check different angles. This radar may not quite show it to be close. No, it's not showing it. Let's check the Melbourne radar. It kind of shows it, but it's a higher height here, so we'll see if Jacksonville wants to issue a warning here on this. It's really close. I mean, we're so high up. We're technically just under it with the pixels, but that doesn't mean you couldn't get winds, above that down toward the surface. So you have to be very mindful here. Have to be very mindful of the situation here as we look and as we track. So, again, I'm just trying to give you guys the very latest here. Trying to give you guys the very latest on the situation. Just trying to keep you informed. I'm looking at some stuff nationally here too. Just, keeping an eye on things. Just bear with me. Trying to keep an eye on things nationally as well for some relatives while I talk about local here. So again, I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date on everything. It's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. Just trying to monitor the scenario here as we look and as we track. Again, just Roy, a dynamic system across the country, 6 tornado warnings, none locally. We have this area we're watching here just on the fringes of our viewing area right now. Just sending out some messages to family and friends because we got a lot going on in Missouri and the like. Just a one-man band here in the Weather Center. Again, trying to keep you guys informed here. Again, looking at everything. I'll go up to the north real quick because we have this we're watching here, but we'll just show you some national stuff real quick. Not our focus, obviously, but you see, I have relatives around here. That's why I'm keeping an eye on this. You see around Bloomsdale to St. Genevieve here, some cause for concern. So we have some areas of rotation. Let me pull this back in here. That looks weaker, quite honestly, than it did when I was looking a little while ago. I backed it up, but it still doesn't mean something couldn't have touched down. Most of that's starting to move on and away there now. And we'll keep our eyes further south, but as we keep you updated, some hail moving in there and the like. And then we have stuff to the south. Again, crazy to see the contrast of the snow squall warning, out toward the west. That is something, very much something. That's crazy. Got some stuff in Arkansas, too. I have it in winter mode, but let's get back closer to home right now. Switch this back on over. You might start getting some more warnings in Marion here, unfortunately, now. That looks like it's strengthening there between Eureka and Salt Springs. When you have this wind here moving up from, toward Crescent City again. And then we got some stuff here in southern Flagler County now that looks like it may be close to getting a warning. So, yeah, not what you want to see, obviously, there around areas moving toward Corona there in southern Flagler County. Some more convection popping up. Again, we're continuing to track, continuing to give you guys the very latest here, obviously, on the weather scenario. Again, just a lot happening here on the Doppler. A lot going on. A lot happening. Just really, monitoring the situation here. Let me go ahead and go back to the model, and I want to see something else on there. Because I want to see how much wintry weather is on this back side. Just, we're going to be so busy here coming up. This is interesting. So let me go ahead and kind of get this over. I want to see how far our HRRR is taking the snow flurries. Because, we just got our local warning. I'll jump back down to it, but real quick, this is our HRRR in the winter mode. Eventually you start seeing some of that white stuff there in Alabama and Tennessee, and then you can see again in North Georgia there. You see that all popping on in here. I mean, that's showing some snow flurries there. This is early on the 17th, so this is early Tuesday morning. Maybe some snow flurries all the way to about Macon. I mean, that's even taking it now closer to our viewing area with some snow flurries there, moving down toward like Americus, give or take. I mean, that was right there, just north of the viewing area, quite honestly, with some flurries, right there on the periphery. It wouldn't be much at all, but to have it after we just had so warm an air is interesting. But, okay, so we need to get back down here because we got a warning now. Let me go ahead and get down here. We got our warning. Unfortunately, now we have this concern escalating a little bit. It's just, not a tornado situation, but we have a severe thunderstorm warning now for portions of Marion and Putnam until 7:15. At 6:38, a severe thunderstorm is located over Fort McCoy, moving northeast at 20 miles an hour, interlocking Pomona Park. You have areas there like Fort McCoy, Salt Springs, Lake Delancey, Spar, Fruitland, Orange Springs, Hollister, and Satsuma under this. So Again, a severe thunderstorm warning until 7:15. Portions of Marion and Putnam now. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, quarter-size hail. The potential hazards here you see around Eureka and Salt Springs there. Again, you need to be very mindful of what's going on, obviously, as we're looking and as we're tracking things, as we give you guys the very latest details here. Let me get over to velocity. Let me get over to velocity here. And you can see areas there that we're tracking. This is what I was just talking about, how I was getting concerned, and now there's a warning. We don't have a warning on the flagler stuff yet, but that might change shortly. You know, that stuff there is a little concerning because I see some winds in opposing directions. So we'll have to pay attention to that. Not that there's anything tight right now, but that's the type of stuff that we got to pay attention to just in case it were to start to rotate a little bit. We already had a history down toward Seminole County, down there toward Lake Mary and the like earlier on. You know, as we were looking down that way, Lake Mary and Sanford with some rotation of the Dopplers. So as we go ahead and get back toward our area, though, again, a lot going on. We have this severe thunderstorm warning. That honestly looks a little bit weaker than it did, but we still have to be paying attention here. We still have to be paying attention as we look, as we track things. Again, it's not a tornado situation in our area right now, but we have severe thunderstorm warning here for portions of Putnam and Marion here until 7:15. At 6:38, a severe thunderstorm was located over Fort McCoy, moving northeast at 20 miles an hour, 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, and quarter-size hail. We're talking about Interlochen, Pomona Park, Fort McCoy, Salt Springs, Lake Delancey, Spar, Fruitland, Orange Springs, Hollister, and Satsuma. So again, expect, wind damage to roof side and trees, hail damage to vehicles, is expected here in some instances as we're looking toward parts of the area. I know after we get this dynamic system through, at least the weather will calm down some, but we'll have to watch out for that fire danger with low humidity and the like. There's gusty winds at points. They've had some big problems out toward Oklahoma today, for instance, with fire danger, western Oklahoma, as we're keeping you guys informed here. Now let's get a hail tracker. We are seeing a hail signature, so I'm in a couple different areas here in Marion now that looks severe in nature. East of Spar, and then you have areas, this was just showing it on the scan before, they'll back it up, but between Eureka and Salt Springs, but that one's weakening. We got this hail area here up to 1 inch in diameter. We also have this area of hail here south of Crescent City as we're looking, as we're tracking. That's not quite enough for a warning yet, but it may get a warning. It was enough as we were looking toward Volusia Lake. They canceled Lake out, but that is still going for portions of Volusia there until about 7 p.m. So again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest on the situation. Obviously, it's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family here in toward the weather center. So again, trying to keep you informed, trying to keep you up to date. There's just a whole bunch going on. Just everywhere in terms of that meteorology. Let me go ahead and zoom back out a little bit. Don't see too much out west yet, but out here we have a situation. Here. We're monitoring things. 1 hour rainfall. And some areas down south getting, in central Florida, getting 2 inches. That's very beneficial, but you don't have severe weather like what they were getting to pop on up. And then you can see, again, watching stuff in Missouri. St. Genevieve County, damage there 4 miles east of, looks like Leadington. That's how you would pronounce that there. And then that's why you need to watch your local meteorologist up there, because they'll pronounce that, maybe a little bit, better compared to what you're used to hearing. But because we got to focus on our local situation in general. But let me go ahead. I have family and friends up there, so I'm keeping a little bit closer eye on that just in case something really, evolves there. But sometimes in these situations, it'd be hard to tell right off, though. Looks like they just let St. Genevieve County go up there at 5:45 Central. But you can see we have our hail signature here east of Spar, between Spar and Eureka. Spar and Eureka, here we have that signature on the Doppler. Let me go ahead and jump back on over to our other mode. We're watching this area here northwest of Salt Springs. We have this area here around, it looks like County Road 315. County Road 315, there's some hail, maybe to an inch in diameter. And let's kind of do a track on this a little bit, the best we can at least, because that's really organizing there. And then it's kind of going something maybe like this, give or take. So that could get us up there, you know. I mean, this could hold on for a while. Maybe get us all the sawgrass. I mean, they're done now, thankfully, up there. That's over as that golf tournament concluded a little while ago. But people still trying to leave, obviously. By the way, there's a tornado on the ground in Arkansas right now. Let's see, what do we have on that on the national level? I know we're jumping all around here. But let's see what that is all about. That is a damaging tornado toward Randolph, Jackson, Lawrence counties in Arkansas. Follow your local meteorologist. I'm talking more about national than I generally would. It's just because I have family and friends in some of these areas. So I gotta, you know, I have to go ahead and while I'm on, if I'm on for our area, it's hard to look at it and not talk about it, just so I can kind of get an idea of what's going on myself. But you see around Walnut Ridge, that's pretty concerning. Follow the local meteorologist. I know. You know, state of Arkansas, some digital meteorology there online, for instance, you know, so on YouTube and the like, giving you the very latest. But as we go ahead, and you see around Walnut Ridge there, looks like some pretty tight rotation. Again, there's a confirmed tornado with that. And that is from their spotters. Yeah, I didn't really see the pre-signature definitive there. So train spotters apparently with that. But as we get back down here, you know, just watching here, giving you guys the very latest. Looks a little bit stronger now. Looks a little bit stronger. Again, giving you guys the latest. You see west of Eureka there. Again, watching this. We have areas north of Salt Springs, watching that. At some point here, if we don't have tornado warnings locally or something in a really highly populated area, what I'll do is I'll take breaks here because we're going to be on for a long time over the next 24 hours, give or take. And a lot at points it'll be tough to go off because we'll have tornado warnings. You know, I can at least kind of go off for a few minutes in a severe thunderstorm situation and not feel too bad about it normally, you know. But in a tornado situation, I really don't like to go off to catch my breath even, you know, unless I absolutely have to. But I know we were on so long the other day. I had to for a few minutes there, but we were on for like 3 hours straight. And yeah, you know, so we have another confirmed tornado warning box to extend that out there in Arkansas. See, areas like Paragould there, a confirmed tornado maybe heading that direction. This is north of Jonesboro in Arkansas and heading toward the Boot Hill. So storyline that folks up there are watching. There's also some severe weather around Little Rock. You know, you even see around Cabot there. Looks like we got some stuff moving just to the east of there. You know, watching some stuff there, family and friends and the like. That just got warned after it was moving away from Cabot. But still, that's good. At least this didn't strengthen up right over Cabot there, you know, in regards to some family and friends. But as we go ahead and look back on over here at the situation locally here, the reason we're on the air is a severe thunderstorm situation for parts of Marion and parts of it looks like Putnam until 7:15. As we give you guys the very latest there, you see around areas west of Eureka, some wind enhancement here. So, again, continuing to give you guys the very latest on the situation here. Okay, so what we're going to do, I think, now, we are watching some wind in Flagler. That may get a warning soon. But we're going to catch our breath and back at the top of the hour at 7 o'clock, unless we need to pop back in sooner. Now, I will say I may still have something set in our system to say there's a tornado watch from the other day. I was hoping we would be able to catch our breath in between some mornings here. And, you know, obviously that didn't happen because this really got going quickly here in our southern periphery. So, it's a situation where instead of just being on for a few minutes, jumping off, switching some things up, it may say there's tornado watch. There probably will be some tornado watches tomorrow, but there's not one right now. I just have to change that in our system when it runs our little thing, saying we're on every half hour or so. So just keep that in mind. I don't want you guys to get mixed up when you see that here in a second. So I have to change some stuff up. But yeah, we are watching a severe thunderstorm warning here. Parts of Marion, parts of Putnam till 7. What is the expiration here? Let's check that again. 7:15. So, okay, we're back at 7 unless we need to pop back in sooner. Keep it tuned to Cloud Weather. I'll keep you guys up to date.
This is a clouds weather alert.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud jumping back in. Quite a bit going on here, switching between radar modes. And now we had that one warning there toward parts of Marion and parts of Putnam. Well, now we're transitioning over to a warning there toward parts of Flagler and parts of St. Johns counties, and a little bit of Putnam in this one too. This just got issued in the last few moments. We had that other warning there. I'll back it up. You see that was in play. It's been canceled because it's below severe limits, it looks like now. But now we have this warning. Instead, we have more of the overall parameters here toward Flagler, St. John's, and Putnam there until about 7:30. So again, we're just continuing to give you guys the very latest on the weather situation here, trying to keep you guys up to date, obviously, on what's happening. And just make sure that you guys know what's going on here toward the local area. Just trying to keep you guys, in the know here with what we're dealing with. Just so important, obviously, we have a situation like this. So, again, continuing to watch, continuing to track. I'm just checking some different things, watching some stuff for family here behind the scenes as well. As just seeing here what we're dealing with, and just trying to, prioritize things the best we can. We have to talk here on the air about our local area the most, but, more volatile threats out toward like Missouri and the like here today. But as we go ahead and, that does not look good in Flagler County. Let me go ahead and switch back on over. That wind enhancement, oh my goodness, that does not look good there in Flagler County. That looks like widespread 60 to 70. I'm seeing winds over 70 miles an hour here. I hope that's not reaching the surface. That really is concerning. I'm surprised to see that, to be quite honest, in the way this setup is. That's not what we want to see. Let me get some traffic cameraed up near I-95, excuse me. There is a lot going on here as we're seeing the situation here evolve, and that really is concerning there in Flagler County right now. We need to make sure we treat this more like a tornado situation around Palm Coast. Not saying there is one, but this one looks very, very robust here. Hopefully it's not reaching, there's a chance it's not, but I'm about to find out somewhat, at least with some traffic camera views. We're going to see how nasty things looking. You got to remember, 2 people are headed back from the Players Golf Tournament here, and they may be getting caught up in all this. They may be getting caught up in all this there in Flagler County, headed back, going, maybe back down towards Central Florida. And you see the traffic there, and people are getting caught out in this here with all this wind, and rain here. This is not a good situation right now toward parts of the viewing circle. Again, this is a live look at the Florida 511 camera here. You can see some flashes, of lightning probably, I guess it's possible. If the winds are showing the velocity, so it could be power flashes there. I'm hoping the radar is overdoing that, but it's been a while since I've seen a signature like that in our covered area. I mean, even the other day, you see how that last frame there, this is 72 miles an hour here, folks, showing up on velocity. This could be more of a destructive storm here in toward Flagler County, considerable to approaching destructive here. I know used to we'd call 70 destructive. Now it's 80, and it's not quite 80, more like 70. But my point is a considerable damage type of storm here toward I-95 as we're looking there toward Flagler County. Again, that is not something you want to be out in. Let me see if I can get some more cameras up, because I am, not seeing that on the first few cameras I pulled up here. But I need to make sure I'm in the right spot, obviously, with a situation like this. Let me go ahead and let's see what we have. Let's see what we have here. Let's see, that does not look fun. Let's go ahead and go back over here. I know we saw some organization. I was a little concerned, but I did not think it was going to turn into something like this that quickly. That looks like one of our worst severe thunderstorm situations you'll ever see here. Not a tornado situation yet, but you see how volatile things are there in toward Flagler County. This is a serious situation, and, we could have trees in theory start falling here. I know the winds don't look like on traffic cameras, so I'm hoping they don't reach. But the problem is, even if I see them now aloft, it could be a sign that they're about to reach here pretty soon. Next scan or two, next few minutes, They're still in the radar and velocity mode, but this time they're actually maybe getting down to the surface and knocking some trees down here. Look at all that traffic. This is a dangerous situation right now in Flagler County, folks. A dangerous situation. I know we came on from Marion earlier on, but now we got an escalation here in Flagler. Let me go ahead and, this is just not good with everybody out on the road here, obviously. Getting caught in the middle of this. That is really serious. Let's go to the other mode here. And that is showing it some, not quite as bad, thankfully, but it's still there. I know our other radars. Let me see if Moody radar is showing some of this. It'd be great if somehow it was really overdoing it off of Jacksonville. That latest scan I had it really shipped up to more marine land now. Let's see. Let me get some cameras up that way then on the Florida 501 perspectives. So north of Palm Coast to more marine land. Let's see what the winds look like. Just checking some of these cameras. I kind of wonder if the velocity is being overdone somehow by a good bit, because these cameras don't look that impressive, at least in comparison to what I'm seeing on velocity. That doesn't mean some neighborhoods aren't still experiencing some trees falling, though. Okay, this is some pretty dark skies. We'll show this one. Let's show this angle then. Looking north, you see quite a few people on the interstate on 995 here. Obviously you don't want to be out on this here in this type of situation, but a lot of people are headed back to the south, coming from that Players Golf tournament here. So not what we want to see, people getting caught out in the storms here. We mentioned it this morning in our special update that we'd have some stuff popping, and didn't hit right at the golf tournament when it was happening, but people headed home are, they're not in a good spot here. They're not experiencing a very good situation. So again, this is here on the First Coast, in our First Coast region, where you see some folks with their flashers on, as we're looking here, as we're tracking. It's just a situation here where you have the, deteriorating weather here in north parts of Flagler. I'm sure some folks are losing power at the neighborhood level, here, in north parts of Flagler County. So again, just trying to keep you guys up to date. I'm surprised the cameras aren't showing something worse. I'm hoping that means somehow we're not getting this wind that's showing up, aloft here down to the surface, because this is at about 5,000 feet. But again, in theory, generally you'll get that to reach. So, even if it's not reaching everywhere in here, I think in some pockets it is probably reaching enough to cause some damage. So keep that in mind here. Keep that in mind, even if it's not reaching everywhere. It may be causing some damage in some spots here as we look up to more marine land there. You need to be very careful. You need to be inside and away from windows around marine land there and that part of the adjacent northern Flagler County coastline. As we're looking adjacent northern Flagler and the southern St. John's are around marine land at Summerhaven as well. This is coming your way, and it's coming your way now as we're looking, as we're tracking things, as we're monitoring things. Just something to be very mindful of. This is a very dynamic weather setup here. We have all this warm air out ahead of the main system here. Let me switch to the broad view, because we have tornado watches all the way from Texas to Illinois, and warnings, all the way to, literally from near Houston all the way up here on and off. We have warnings all the way up to Chicago here. If you ever taken in, there's a blizzard on the northern side of this, the low pressure so volatile here. We haven't talked much at all about that wintry side, but yeah, they're having some big problems up north from the wintry aspect of things. Just a lot going on, obviously, with this. Some areas getting, into the, what you call more like feet of snow here, as we're looking at things. So you see some of these different indicators, 26 inches there of snow, because it says only 18, but when I query it, it says 26. But back to Flagler County we go now. I'm around marine land. That's some really strong wind moving in Marineland, Summer Haven. The next scan's going right over them. So, I mean, it's already over you is what that really means, because radar's, not continuous things. So this is 5 minutes behind. That's just how it works. So it's already up into here, maybe even Crescent Beach, getting into some of the spring breakers headed there. Granted, some of the week's not going to be ideal, but if you booked way ahead or something, you might be up there as we're tracking things around the Crescent Beach area. Again, giving you guys the very latest here, keeping you guys informed, keeping you guys up to date here on the situation. We're going to go ahead and see. I know we got some stuff in Duval right around Sawgrass now popping up. I know people, still maybe celebrating, leaving the golf tournament in a little while ago, but now gusts up to 50 up that way now up towards Sawgrass. And, TPC Sawgrass, the Players Golf Tournament. You have some indicators, by the way, back out to the west here, some enhancement North Eureka, but this is where you really have the higher wind potential around Marineland there in Summer Haven now in that latest scan. I mean, this shows at 5,000 feet, winds to about 68 miles an hour, moving on in there, right along the A1A. As we look at that situation, as we look at that scenario here, as we give you guys the very latest here, some very strong winds showing up on velocity. Let me check the power outage numbers. Let me go ahead and check power outage information here, try to get a handle on all that. Let me go ahead and see what we have. Putnam County, 1,295 customers in the dark, according to Powder.US. Flagler and St. John's don't have any reporting yet, but remember, it takes a few minutes for some of this data to come on in. But yeah, Putnam County, 1,295 customers in the dark, and most of those on FP&L, 1,288. Clay Electric is 7. So 7 customers in the dark right now. It just depends on where things hit here in general. Where the homes are in terms of what grid they're on. But as we go ahead and see here around Marineland to Summer Haven, we're watching very carefully here the scenario. We're watching the situation here carefully. Now, I will say that a lot of this other stuff looks kind of sub-severe. It could just be the one area so strong, but maybe it'll be a situation where we start getting more advisories and we'll have to stay with this for a while here if this stuff is not, quite severe. But we'll see. I mean, you just never know here, obviously, if it's going to be just as severe or not severe or a little bit more excessive like what we were seeing there for a few frames. And we still kind of are here. I mean, you see how it's kind of hit and miss. We didn't even have a warning there. And then it got all organized there in Northern Flagler. And it's still showing that on the wind mode here. Marineland to Summer Haven there. So we're continuing to watch. We're continuing to track. I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date. I know we're focused on our local area here. We're really trying to more focus, on our local area. But it's a situation we do have some national, ties to this because our bigger threat is coming from areas toward the west. So let's see that again. You see this line here, the contrast in the air mass. I mean, literally, you go from tornado warnings in southeast Missouri, one of them at least there, and technically there's another one that kind of goes on in, to a snow squall warning there. A snow squall warning there as they're looking there west of Springfield. And we could have snow flurries as far south. Granted, they might be pretty isolated, but as far south as about Americus here Tuesday morning. That's not that far north of our area. I mean, that's what tomorrow's doing, I guess. Guess it's possible Albany could even get a snow flurry. Yeah, really. After we just had 91 here east of Stark in north central Florida the other day, I don't think they'll get as far as our northern Florida counties. At this point, we'll watch. But, not really impactful. It's just the novelty aspect of it. But that's something after we've already had summer almost and, in the 90s and now talking about flurries again, not that far away. Like, what is going on here, folks? But that's just how it is with the weather. That's the fun of it sometimes. The snow flurry part, the severe part is not fun, obviously. It's very dangerous. And we have to track that here for you on the air as we're tracking here, as we give you guys the very latest. You see around Marineland and Summer Haven, Again, we're seeing that wind enhancement there right on A1A. This is just east of US 1 and I-95. We're watching the latest scans. A lot of that's now right on the beach. I hope people are not out of the beach right now. There's some nice beach there out there in southern St. Johns County, and hope nobody's out there because this is not ideal weather. You have the dangerous lightning, obviously. You have the wind, the rain. I mean, as we look ahead, you're not worried about this right now, but you have that rip current threat we've been tracking too. Where some of our beaches here at times, when it is a little bit more ideal. And the like here to be out there. I know we've been talking about that, obviously, as we give you guys the very latest information. So, again, just continuing to give you guys the updates. And no, this is not an ideal week for spring breakers here, folks, at all. Not an ideal week for those spring breakers here as we're looking and as we're tracking things. Let me see our 7-day I had up this morning. I haven't updated it from this morning, but here you go. You can see we had, our 60% chance of rain. That's coming into play. It's 90% tomorrow, and then it's going to be not good beach weather. Let's just say that. I mean, look at how cool this is. And in Georgia, our southern Georgia counties, some of our spots could get 28, 29 degrees, and, that could get us into a freeze here. Obviously, it would, 32 and below. So, that's something to be, taking note of here before we do start that warming trend. But, we literally had 91 on Wednesday here east of Stark, and now we're talking about 30s again in mid-March. This can happen, but going from pretty far above average to pretty far below average here, you see on this 7-day as we're looking. And by the way, our high today ended up being, and I factor in the beaches and stuff with this, and, Georgia counties. But here in Stark, we got 87. I had 84, but I'm factoring everybody here, still 81. Here east of Stark right now, but you see that trend as we watch the drop in temperatures. Tomorrow for our area, in a lot of ways, it'll be an upside down day. As we're looking there hour by hour in terms of temperatures. Let me show you something with that. Put our temperature modeling on because I want to see what it's going to be at 8 a.m. tomorrow, because this will show you how we have instability around as I'm looking as I track, because it's not going to be, we're not going to be at the minimum tomorrow morning is my point, as we give you guys the very latest. Let me go ahead and switch away from this. You see we have a current warning, but I have the modeling up. It's coming to 60s, upper 60s for most of us here, close to 70 at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And then you'll start to see, though, in our northwestern zones, that cooler air come in, as we look here. By 1 o'clock, Tallahassee's in the mid-50s, Albany's in the mid-50s, but we're in Stark, in the mid-70s, Jacksonville in the mid-70s. And then as we, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all forecast, even if we try to make it that. Albany's in the mid-40s by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So we're looking. It's crazy how warm it's been, and now we see this cool air coming in by 5 p.m. Lake City's at the mid-50s. Tallahassee's getting in the 40s. Albany's, still there, and then you see by, 9 o'clock, Albany's already in the 30s. Tallahassee's in the 40s. Union County's about 50 and starts just above that. So that kind of tells the story here as we look and as we track things. A very, very, very dynamic system here. Instability right now, we're looking at a lot of that. Have some of the parameters here, in the eastern zones and some of that overlap here. Of course, out of the west, we have more of that, coming into play here. As we look at things, as we track them, there's that pink box there is now radar indicated tornado warning. Was a confirmed one there in northeast Arkansas. You see a bunch of yellow boxes, severe thunderstorm warnings. Red boxes mean tornado warnings. Let me look here. We have yellow shading tornado watch. Let me just check something. I need to check some stuff for relatives. I know we're all on site. There's only so much, I got so many things, going on right now, but looks like a tornado warning there in northern Cape Girardeau County. No, excuse me, that's Bollinger County. I'm sorry. Let me double check that here. We got so much going on here. Let me go up there. I just need to check something on that real quick. Let me go ahead and Sedgwickville area. Then that is going to be moving in toward northern Cape Girardeau County, though, as we look in the timeline. If we look there in the timeline. as they keep you guys informed. That might clip Southern Perry, but it's going to go south of Perryville. It's kind of watching some stuff on the Doppler. It's pretty tight there. Again, we're focused more on our local weather. I'm just looking at some of that stuff up there really quick. Okay, do we have that warning going away now with the worst of that wind getting off the coast? I think we do. Just had a gust to 49 though at the Palm Coast Weather Stem site here. Okay, I backed it up. They're going to expire at 7:30. The storm was prompted. The warning has moved out of the area. Therefore, the warning will be allowed to expire. However, small hail and gusty winds are still possible with the thunderstorms. So that's a positive sign. It's starting to kind of look like, and as we lose the daytime heating, of course, tomorrow will be a whole different setup. But, this is more that pop-up setup. We may, get a bunch of advisories and not have to deal with many more warnings, and I'll be able to take a break for a while, which would be great. Obviously tomorrow's going to be a whole different type of story where we're going to have to be with you hour after hour probably. It's going to be one of our bigger events we've had outside of the hurricanes probably in terms of just coverage here. Not Helene, it's not a situation like that. But outside of that, some of those hurricanes we've had, tomorrow could be one of our busier days we've had here in the Weather Center. So, again, since we've been doing this, over a half decade ago is when we started all this. So, again, let me look at HRRR because there's some different aspects of this I need to look at while we're on in case, if we wrap it up because we won't stay on for national here unless if there's like a tornado emergency or something. But hopefully in this type of setup we won't get. Tomorrow could be different in the Carolinas because that's going to be so volatile up there. But by the way, I see there's a tornado warning now, Cape Girardeau and Perry counties in Missouri. So just watching for some relatives. I think that's going to go south, though. I'm sure it will. Where I'm kind of looking, but some of those areas have to be very vigilant. Obviously, there's some pretty tight spin on that. So let me just jump over there really quick. It looks like that's probably producing. Let's see. Not yet, but it's just near Sedgwickville, Missouri. I'd be taking shelter. That's going to cross I-55 here in a little bit. Let's go ahead and jump back down, though, to our modeling because, again, there's so many different aspects of this. This is the model, our model here, HRRR run of this, for our area at 4 a.m. You see some pop-up stuff, and normally you wouldn't be concerned about that, but in this setup, I'm scrubbing back some because it's, on that periphery, eventually if it kind of gets in the right setup, some of that stuff could be capable of producing an isolated tornado in the overnight hours. To have multiple ways to get alerts here overnight. You need to have multiple ways to get alerts here overnight. As we're looking, may not be enough for a tornado watch locally, but could have a couple tornado warnings, at least some severe thunderstorm warnings. This is at 8 a.m. when we could start to have things a little more organized here. But even before that, it could be dangerous. So make sure you're paying attention. Have multiple ways to get alerts overnight. And you see, this is 10 a.m. Any of these could be capable of producing some tornadic activity. So, again, you need to be very careful here, and I would say even around Stark, it's not out of the question. The chance is lower here than in other parts of the region, but it's not zero. There is a tornado chance here. We very well may get put under a tornado watch here in Stark tomorrow. So just letting you guys know, just giving you guys that heads up here, obviously. This is at 2 p.m., so when people are getting out of school, maybe we could have some alerts, in place. Severe thunderstorm warning or maybe even a tornado warning. And this is at 3 o'clock, and then we start at 3 o'clock. There's still some stuff there, but by 4, it starts to really wane, and we get the cool air to come in pretty quick back behind. But, we'll see here as we monitor. I'm scrubbing back and forth, and it might get confusing, but I'll just kind of run this out a little bit. And, when you see red, that's when you, in general, need to just be vigilant here. Not, you see this here at midnight around Stark. We'll see if it kind of approaches like that. I'm hoping that'll be more, sub-severe stuff that just gives us some rain. Of course, we'll have some lightning and stuff, but that's at midnight here. This is 11 p.m. I'll scrub it a little bit further back. That says you, let's see here. This is, okay, so this is 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock, 10 p.m., 11, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., as I progressed at 11 a.m., noon, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. You see, I kind of skipped over 6 p.m. and then it really starts, getting better. But at points, there's so much to break down on there. I like, really broke it into different parts on that update this morning to go really slow with it. But just broad brush it there. But you see some stuff in the Carolinas that could be very bad tomorrow. Quite honestly, this could be a historic event up there in a very bad way in terms of tornadic weather up there in the Carolinas. Maybe even, some of that sinking down here, just, on our northern edges of the viewing circle before some of that, threat really is more focused further north. But, talking about southeast Georgia some too. But as you can see up there in Virginia and the like, again, we have our logo red for our local threat. We're not doing it for the national threat anymore, the red logo, but it's for the local threat here. We got a lot going on, obviously, but things will start to finally move out later on. But it's going to be a high-impact event areas further north. Still could be pretty significant in our area, and if a tornado hits you, that's still a big deal. Whether it's an EF0, EF1, or if it's something more significant like what they could see up north tomorrow in general. Granted, we could get an EF2 tornado around here. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong here as we're looking, as we're tracking things. Let me show you something here. It's going to be our SPC information. Let me see what I can pull up on this. You can see our outlook. You see the hatched area. In theory, they're doing this different now, but anybody in the hatched area before 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, so some of the areas on the far western side, it's already passed because of the timing, but in theory, anybody in this area here could end up seeing, a tornado here. A tornado that could get to EF2 strength. We didn't even have a risk at all. In Central Florida, they had a couple of tornado warnings, so that's why we've got to be really careful here, But the yellow area is the highest concern. See some of that sinking into southwest Georgia here. You see Heartland, eastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, northern Mississippi. Got a lot going on western Kentucky. You see here the hatched area. Tomorrow, I get all the way through Stark, and it's a 5%. That's enough for a tornado watch, and it really starts to drop off around Gainesville and Palaca southeast, give or take. But, it's really high. This is very unusual. I think I was reading maybe this has never happened before, a wind risk this high, this early on up there. This is a 60% wind risk here. This is almost, again, really talking about pretty much, I think it might actually be unprecedented in terms of these probabilities this early out. But Richmond, Raleigh, you kind of get the idea. And the tornado risk, one more level higher at 30%, and that gets you a higher risk, I believe, unless they've changed how they're doing that. But, there have been some changes to that because there is only a SIG 1, which in theory would be only up to EF2, but I wouldn't be surprised if they add a SIG 2, which in theory would be up to EF3 intensity here. So there's a lot going on is what I'm saying. So we got to pay attention here. We got to be very mindful of the situation, obviously, as we're tracking things here, as we're giving you guys the very latest. So, got a lot going on up there in the heartland of the country, as we're updating you guys. I know, we're just trying to keep you guys informed, trying to keep you up to date. I know, just watching things on that national level. Our local warnings are gone now at 7:29, about to be 7:30. Real quick, back to the north. There's stuff, and that includes Cape Girardeau now, by the way. That just popped up last few minutes. So that's something to talk about, obviously, getting that right there on the line. I'd watch those local meteorologists. It's been almost 11 years, but I interned there at KFVS 12 in Cape Girardeau with Grant Dade, and I'm sure he's on the air right now giving folks the latest out there in Cape Girardeau. In that market there, as they had to take shelter some last year from the tornado threat. Hopefully this doesn't get to that level where they have to, move out of the studio, but they might. This one's stronger, though, to the north of them, toward areas northern Cape Girardeau County and southern Perry County. Again, we're not really focusing on national weather anymore, but just while I'm on, I'll go ahead and mention it, obviously. So, again, I know Grant does a great job up there in Cape Girardeau at KFVS 12. But as we go ahead and look here, As we look at the situation, you see some lightning there around Sawgrass. That's not good for people that are still hanging around. After the golf tournament, obviously, we could have gusts around 40, pea-sized hail, in this corridor. So we'll see how things evolve because the models have this kind of expanding west, and we'll have to see if it kind of, maybe more of that stuff coming in. We'll see. We'll have to just wait and see there as we look and as we track. So that's the storyline right now. We're going to wrap it for the time being. Again, I know, on the national level, follow the local meteorologist there in toward the heartland, like Grant Date on KFVS 12. I interned there. I can't believe it's been over a decade, but it has, 2015. He does a great job there, and I'm sure he's on there giving minute-by-minute updates. There's a bunch of tornado warnings, including for the Cape Girardeau downtown area, the metro there, until 7:15 Central Time. And we see the Boot Hill a lot in his market area. He was on the air during the Mayfield tornado there, and during the Perry County tornado going back. That was, I think, 2020. Let's see. No, wait a minute. 2017. Yeah, we're going back a while here as we're tracking things with that one. But a bunch of these he's been on for, obviously. He's on right now. I'm sure I haven't had a chance to look because I've been so busy with our stuff, but I'm sure he's on there with the very latest there. You can watch that online and the like. So for now, I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud. We'll break back immediately if we have anything in the local area here to give you guys the very latest for. But we'll be back here as warranted. Let me see if there's any questions or comments real quick from any of the viewers at home. Yeah, folks like Top Cat Ann and Thomas watching. I appreciate you guys both, and just everybody else watching here as well. Facebook, Twitter is also considered the X platform. At Cloud Casey, I'm on that. YouTube, you can back up the stream when I'm on, which I think is really helpful. The DVR functionality there, youtube.com/@cloudweather, and you have Twitch there, cloudweather, and then cloudweather.com. So that'll do it for now. We'll be back here as warranted over the next, maybe 24 hours or so. Maybe a little less, really, for our area in terms of that. But, it's going to be a busy period ahead. So make sure you have multiple ways to get alerts, charted the devices in case of power loss. That applies really nationally in a lot of spots, but locally here, too, as we had some power outages in Putnam County. Real fast, let me check powder.us here as we're tracking and see if Flagler. Okay, so Putnam's at 241 customers out. Flagler's at 9 out. St. John's at none. But I'm sure that's going to, be changing here, and it may not have all the data in there yet because it's such a fluid situation. So, again, that's the storyline for now. Thanks for tuning in and trusting me. I'll be back here as warranted. I'm hoping this stuff will, maybe not get bad as severe, but it's close, in some cases still. But, our big event is going to be tomorrow here. Please stay safe. Even during the night, we could have some stuff popping up that starts to rotate. But especially, as we get closer to sunrise toward those western zones. There's even in South Georgia there, WALB TV's been reporting some stuff. And, there's about some school closures even up that way and toward South Georgia because of the severe weather. Now, some folks maybe on spring break, like FSU and UF, but there are some school closures. I know I interned there in 2018, and you can go to their website, and I'm sure, I'm looking now, actually, they have some of the school closures listed. There's a lot of them, so, we have so many counties to cover, it's kind of hard to nail all that down, but there's a lot of school closures up there. There's so much concern about the severe weather tomorrow up that way after, everything that had happened, the start of 2017, and then later that month with the terrible tornado situations around Albany and Adel. There's folks, really, get concerned. I mean, we had the Americas tornado in 2007, I think it was. But people really take it even a little more seriously up there because they know the consequences of stronger, higher-end tornadoes up that way. So that's going to do it for now. Thanks for tuning in and trusting me. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Stay safe.